Okay, hi, welcome. Let's get started. Counter-Strike is one of the biggest FPS franchises ever made, and it's had a lot of releases over the years, and the original Counter-Strike is still held in high esteem. But what if I told you there's a secret remake of the original Counter-Strike that, if you're a Counter-Strike fan, might have played and might have installed on your computer right now? Well, let me explain. Okay, let's go back all the way to the beginning. Here's 1999, and the Counter-Strike hit the gaming scene as a mod for Half-Life. This mod for Half-Life was picked up by Valve and released as an official game, and, well, everyone who plays Counter-Strike knows this story. Now, this video, by the way, won't just be a entire video essay on this secret remake of Counter-Strike 1.6. This remake actually ties into a lot of Counter-Strike's weird development history with its games, and that's also what this video is going to be about. Because every time I watch videos about this game, or any game about any video about any of Counter-Strike's games, I always get a different answer as to why these games were made. So this is going to go into that because this remake actually ties into that very heavily. Anyway, enough of that tangent, let's go back. So anyway, after Counter-Strike 1.6, Counter-Strike Condition Zero was developed by Turtle Rock Studios, which was a little port of Counter-Strike for the Xbox, for the original Xbox, that was also ported to Steam in 2004. This is not a mainline Counter-Strike game. Keep that in mind. That's going to be important later. This is not a game that was made as a big-time sequel or something. This was a little side project Valve had come up with to get one of their games on the Xbox, which they would do tons of times later. We're going to see this as we go along. Next, in the same year, the Source engine is created with its fancy new graphics and, physics. Counter-Strike Source would be released in the same year as Condition Zero in 2004. This is where we're going to stop in this timeline that I'm creating here for you, because this is actually the most important game we're going to be talking about today. And also, the Source engine is a huge gray area in terms of what games were made and why they were made. There are two very confusing games that I always get a different answer as to why those were made, and that is CSGO and CS Source. I get a different answer as to why these were made. I watched tons of videos on these games, and no one can really tell me whether or not why they were made, whether they were supposed to be big mainline Counter-Strike games or just ports of games, which is why I'm doing this video, to hopefully try and clear anything up. By the way, if I say anything wrong in this video or something that is not correct, please correct me in the comments. I don't want to be spreading misinformation at all. I just want to put this in a way that's the most understandable for me and for everybody watching. Anyway, back to CS Source and CSGO. One of these games is a remake of CS 1.6. Can you guess it? Okay, CS Source. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think that's pretty obvious now that I say it, because it kind of makes sense, but it's not exactly the same, so it might be a little bit harder. But let me explain this a little bit better. So back in 2004 up until 2005, Valve had released a couple of ports of their old games from the Gold Source engine to the Source engine. You may know these two notable ones are actually Half-Life Source and Day of Defeat Source. These are two that people talk about a lot as being, one is a good remake and the other one really, really sucks. And that one is Half-Life Source. Half-Life Source was released, people were expecting it to be, the Source game from our childhood being ported to the Source engine with brand new graphics. In fact, it really sucked. It was really buggy, had a lot of graphical details. And Day of Defeat Source, while it's still held in pretty high esteem as well as Counter-Strike 1.6, people like that one, but it's pretty much dead now, and there's really no reason to even try and find a game in that game. What am I talking about? But there was one more remake, and that was Counter-Strike Source. And the reason I'm making this video is because nowhere on anywhere in advertisements, on the Steam Workshop page, Steam Store page, anywhere does Counter-Strike Source say it is an exact remake of Counter-Strike 1.6. Not an exact remake, but a remastering of the game. In fact, it's advertised as something entirely else. The description of the game says, the next installment of the world's #1 online action game, Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike Source blends Counter-Strike's award-winning team play action with the advanced technology of Source technology, featuring state-of-the-art graphics, all new sounds, and introducing physics. Counter-Strike Source is a must-have for every action gamer. Let me restate that. The next installment of the world's #1 action game. They called it a next installment. It's not a sequel, and it's not supposed to be a mainline game. I don't know why it's advertised as that, because it's clearly not. Counter-Strike Source didn't bring a lot new to the table in terms of gameplay apart from physics and a couple new weapons. Apart from that, the game stayed exactly the same. And we are going to go over a couple things that are exactly the same, and that's why I started making this video, that I saw between Counter-Strike 1.6 and Counter-Strike Source. Because there are actually a lot of similarities that led me to believe this, especially since the name, like Day of Defeat Source is called Day of Defeat Source, and Half-Life Source is called Half-Life Source. It's because those are those games, the original first ones, in the Source engine. So Counter-Strike Source is not a mainline Counter-Strike game, it's Counter-Strike 1.6 in the Source engine. It makes sense to me. But let me look over some details with you. Look at these reload animations. They reuse the exact same reload animation that they did in the previous game. Heck, even some of these player models are the exact same CT&T agents from the previous game 1.6. You can even hear in voice lines. They've reused the exact same recorded voice lines for this game. The only thing that's different is the graphical fidelity and certain layouts of the maps. Counter-Strike Source is supposed to be a port, and I don't really understand why they advertise it as a next big installment. It could be because the other games weren't doing as well, so they were like, if we advertise it as another big Source game, another big Counter-Strike game, more people will buy it. And I'm not just going crazy here. If you look at Half-Life Source's store page description, it says this: Half-Life set new standards for action games when it was released in 1988. Half-Life Source's digitally remastered version of the critically acclaimed and best-selling PC game. They said it right there. It's a digital remaster, while Counter-Strike Source says it's a next installment. And it's really unclear as to why this is like this. I hear everybody talk about saying it's another mainline Counter-Strike game that people didn't like, so then Counter-Strike Go was made as a port of Source for the Xbox that then got more popular, which I don't believe. So we're going to go over that, and I'm going to try and create a timeline of all the Counter-Strike games. Give me 1 minute. Okay, let's redo this timeline. Okay, so Counter-Strike 1.6 was released in 1999. Then 5 years later, Counter-Strike Source... So Counter-Strike 1.6 was released in 1999. Then 5 years later, Counter-Strike Condition Zero was released as a console port, not a mainline sequel or another big game created by Valve. This was just a console port of Counter-Strike 1.6 to the Xbox that had a very linear multiplayer experience and a small campaign. Then the Source engine is created in the same year. Remember, this is 2004. And in 2004, the Source engine is created, and Counter-Strike Source is created as a remake of 1.6, not a sequel. This is where it gets weird, because the next game in the series created on the Source engine, and the last Counter-Strike game created on the Source engine, called Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or as you would know it, Counter-Strike Go. It's weird with this one because no one actually knows why it was created. Here's the 3 big points that I get about why this one was created. Number 1 is that when CS Source came out, not many people liked it and more people went back to play Counter-Strike 1.6, which is true. But then the big thing is that Counter-Strike Go was made to fix all the problems between 1.6 and CS Source, so that way the players would stop fighting and they'd have a game to play. I don't think that's true. Counter-Strike Go came out on the console first and then was ported to Steam, similar to Counter-Strike Condition Zero. So this wouldn't line up very well. Another one I hear is that Counter-Strike Go was made as a port of CS Source to the Xbox 360, which also doesn't make sense. First off, it wasn't just a port for the Xbox 360. Counter-Strike Go was also released on the PS3 at the time. So it was released on consoles first, then ported to Steam. So I also do not believe this. I don't think it's just a simple port of CS Source that got entirely moved to Steam and then just blew up. Actually, look something up. Anyway. So yes, Counter-Strike Go is a little weird. And actually, another thing is that I don't think it was just a simple port. My goodness. CS Source. Why? Well, the weapon models look very different. Like, they're drastically different compared to CS Source's models. And they didn't just reuse a lot of the weapon animations, too. They, created entirely new ones. And a lot of these models seem a little generic. Like, they might have pulled them off of some model library for free somewhere because they didn't expect this game to get as good as it was. So, I don't think it's supposed to be a mainline game either. I think CSGO was just another side project for Valve. So, we're going to get back into that. But I think you're also wondering, well, why did Valve only port 3 of their games to the Source engine? 2007. Okay, so here's the thing. Valve has had a lot of crazy titles in the past. It would make sense for them to port the other Half-Life expansions and Team Fortress over to the Source engine. But here's the thing, bad on purpose. Number one, all three of these Source ports did not get a lot of popularity. Half-Life 1 Source was hated, Day of Defeat 1 Source was dead, and Counter-Strike Source had a lot of issues with it that not many people liked. So it made sense for Valve to not make another Half-Life port. To make any more ports of their games. Also because a lot of their other games were kind of just weird, like, do you really want a Source port of Ricochet? They also probably didn't do things like Team Fortress, because Team Fortress Classic already had a pretty good player base at the time, and Team Fortress 2 was actually already in development at this time. In case you didn't know, there are actually lost builds of Team Fortress 2, or some sequel to Team Fortress out there that have not been found yet. And it's apparent that Team Fortress 2 could have been being developed on ever since Team Fortress 1's lifespan. So it's possible that they didn't do that because they knew they were going to have another Team Fortress game coming out soon, which they did only 3 years later in 2007. I'm talking about from 2004. So it makes sense for them to not port a game like that, and since Half-Life 1 Source was doing so bad, it would also make sense for them to not port over the expansion packs, especially since Valve didn't make those. Like, it obviously makes sense why they didn't port over Condition Zero to Source, because they didn't make that. Turtle Rock Studios made that, and Gearbox made the expansion packs. So that's my theory as to why they didn't make any more Source ports. You can do a whole other video on that on yourself and do all your own research. But that was just my reasoning as to why there are only 3 Source ports for that. Ports to the Source engine for those games, and, you know, why all of that happened. So let me explain why I think CSGO was created and why all the other Half-Life games were, all the other Counter-Strike games were created. So we have Counter-Strike 1 and Counter-Strike Condition Zero, which was created as a source port. Why do I want to say source port so much? They port to the original Xbox. Counter-Strike Source is created as a remake. Then Counter-Strike Go is created. Here's where it gets weird. Here's my theory about this. So Valve had a ton, and I mean a ton, of games ported to consoles. I mean, there is like almost their entire library of their most popular games just on the Xbox 360. You had the Orange Box ported, which was Portal, Team Fortress 2, and all of Half-Life 2, including Chapters 1 and 2. So they already had 3 of their heaviest hitters. You also have Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. So they had all of their most popular games coming out, and all of those came out before Counter-Strike Go was created and released, which was 2012. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 was 2008 and 2009. Half-Life 2 was all in 2004 and up until 2005, I think. Team Fortress 2 was 2007, and around that same time was Portal. So they had all of their heaviest hitters on the Xbox, including Portal 2. So it would make sense for them to add a Counter-Strike game. They were like, okay, well, we have all our most popular games. We got to give the Xbox players who only play on console something to actually do that's Counter-Strike related. So they came up with Counter-Strike Go. Very similar to, well, like Counter-Strike Condition Zero. Like, look at all the names of the Counter-Strike games. You have Counter-Strike, then Condition Zero. Not Counter-Strike 2, Condition Zero, because it wasn't a sequel. It was a port for the Xbox. It was just a little side game. It wasn't some big sequel that they had to announce. CS Source, which probably didn't get a lot of advertisement for it. Want to know why it's just called CS Source? Because that's what it is. It's a Source version of Counter-Strike 1. So that makes sense. Yeah, stick that in the non-sequels pile. Counter-Strike Go was not meant to be a sequel. Want to know why Counter-Strike 2 is called Counter-Strike 2? Because it's an actual sequel to CSGO, taking what CSGO was, upgrading all its graphics, and adding new content. That they wanted to be a sequel. That's why CS2 isn't ported to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and all that, because it's not supposed to be a console port like CSGO was. CSGO uses a lot of generic weapon models, had a different team of people working on it, was a console port that was released first on consoles, then on Steam, and I think that explains it for you. CSGO was not meant to be a sequel. It wasn't meant to be a competitor to their main game, CS 1.6. It wasn't meant to fix the problems between 1.6 and Source. It wasn't meant to do any of that. It was just Valve getting lucky releasing a game they didn't think would get popular that just blew up in popularity. It wasn't meant to be some console port of CS Source or something like that. That's not what it was at all. And in fact, that's really what I wanted to talk about is just how weird Counter-Strike is. Like, for a game that has such bare bones, like, story and the most bare bones gameplay, it's like the biggest in the esports scene. It's one of the most popular first-person shooters. It's one of Valve's most profitable games they've made, and it's just had the weirdest development history. Like, did you know about this game? Yeah, this is an officially licensed Valve product called Counter-Strike Nexon. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Valve gave out their license to a Korean company called Nexon to create this Valorant Counter-Strike mashup nonsense. So yeah, I don't know, I just don't know. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know how to end this off, because it's just so weird, and it's leaving me flabbergasted. But that's what I think the entire purpose of all of these Counter-Strike games was created. Because I really wanted to talk about this for a long time, and I had just recently started getting into all the old Gold Source games. I have been playing stuff like Half-Life, Half-Life Deathmatch, Counter-Strike. Like, I've been playing through all of them, and it's been a really fun time, and I've had a lot of fun playing stuff like Counter-Strike. But when I got to CS Source, I just noticed too many similarities between 1.6 and CS Source, and I decided to figure out why this was advertised as some big installment and rather than just a remake, which I could definitely tell it was. And then as I did more research, I delved down this rabbit hole of why Counter-Strike Go was created. I got all these different stories and stuff, and it was just very interesting to research. You can do your own research, and again, please let me know if I'm getting anything wrong in the comments. I did as much research as I could, and I'm not saying Valve used generic weapon models from some free library. That's a guess. That is all speculation. I couldn't find anything on the internet for that. But yeah, that's my video on this Counter-Strike, and you know, it's interesting to think of Source as a remake, which I'm sure that's super obvious now that I say it. I think there were some sources I saw that had said that on the internet, but whatever. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please subscribe, and I have a Discord where you can go and have fun. You can have fun there. You can have as much fun as you want, as long as you're not like a creep. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for clicking on this video. If you want more Valve content, if you want more Counter-Strike content, please let me know. I want every excuse to make Counter-Strike content. But yeah, please like and subscribe. It'll help my channel out and make sure it doesn't get thrown into the death grinder that is the lost channels section. Alright, dude. Oh my gosh. This mask is hot. I don't think you all guys understand. This mask is the hottest thing I have ever worn on my face, and it makes me sweat all the time, and I can't. Okay.